Britain has famously got more CCTV cameras than parts of China. But I know that the police do have these roaming vehicles that have kind of cameras attached to every end of them, and they are trying to operating facial recognition in crime prevention.
Mm-hmm.
Is that where is Britain with regards to facial recognition, and how does facial recognition tie into what we've already discussed?
It ties in completely into what we're currently discussing. Under the Starmer government, a new framework is being written for live facial recognition in Britain that will therefore give license basically to police forces to use it around the country. Typically, this has been done, as you described, with cameras on the back of police vans that have been driven around into city centres. But a big development that we now have is that fixed cameras, like normal looking CCTV cameras, are having live facial recognition software put on them. That's happening right now. That's very, very new. In fact, members of my team went to Croydon just in the past couple of days, where that is now being rolled out. So you wouldn't notice really walking down the street, there's normal CCTV cameras. What you don't know is they're actually doing an identity check on you. They're checking your facial biometrics in the way that would happen if you were going through passport control.
This is like the film Minority Report with Tom Cruise.
It's like
We're
almost every dystopian sci-fi film from the past few decades. And then, of course, paired with a digital ID, which operates on your facial biometrics, means that the whole population is enrolled in a facial biometric system, and it just takes a decision of somebody in government or in the police to lock the two together.
As you speak there, I can't help but think of the fact that so many of us, especially those of us who have Apple products, have already given over our facial recognition. We kind of voluntarily said, yeah, sure, you can have my... I accept that you can use face recognition to log into my iPhone. I accept that you can use my fingerprint to log onto my Mac. Are these things connected, or is it just if we've already given all this up naturally, what's the extra difference that this makes?
Well, when you use facial recognition for your phone, if you're somebody that does that, you're only entrusting your facial biometric to the internal software of your phone.
Not to the big tech companies in Silicon Valley?
No, it doesn't go to Apple. And I believe Apple on that one. I mean, it might change over time. And of course, the UK government actually has been trying to build backdoors into Apple software over the past year, which is extraordinary. And there was a big pushback from the Trump administration about that because, of course, they have a global impact. But that is right, that people use their facial biometrics with sometimes just bits of software or tech that are really controlled by them. What I worry about more is when you see that happen in other areas of everyday life where it's not controlled by you, it's controlled by someone else. So really weird use of facial recognition is increasingly in schools for kids to get their school lunch. Like if you have free school meals, or if you use digital payment systems at school, and the schools say, well, it's better than the kids carrying cash or a card because it's safer and everything else. But then these kids are being conditioned to think that it's normal to go through a kind of like home office style, border style check just to get their school lunch. And I think that kind of like securitization of everyday life changes the environment in which we live. And it does mean that then people are more conditioned to accept live facial recognition cameras going down the street. So I really fear that we'll get to the stage one day where people won't feel safe unless there's live facial recognition cameras on the streets. You know, like the real kind of end point of a dystopian surveillance society. But this has been creeping for some time, and it's really important that people realise, you know, this is not just, again, it's been sold on a lie. You know, they're catching criminals they'd never otherwise catch. I watch the police using live facial recognition. I can tell you now that they are not rounding up dangerous fugitives day in, day out using live facial recognition cameras. They're stopping people that are known to the police, that they want to have a chat to, that they want to keep an eye on, and you know,
what are people, petty criminals?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's often people that like clearly have drug problems or mental health issues, low-hanging fruit, really, who are in the caught up in the criminal justice system. And that makes sense. I mean, especially the way that they've used it so far with vans and cameras and a big police presence is you would have to walk up to the police and walk up to the camera in order to be caught by it, right? So they're not catching the most dangerous criminals. Of course, that could check when we have...
Right, because they're not like covert police vans. It does say police emblazoned on the front.
Police live facial recognition cameras. So you're basically volunteering yourself to
it says police...
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
But as I say, that's changing because now they're using these fixed cameras. It is becoming more stealthy and it's becoming more widespread. But and it was always going to go that way. I think it was obvious that it really what was happening before was like a toe in the water and getting people used to the idea that this massive change was happening, which is like the boiling frog, isn't it? I mean, that's why I don't think there's been the kind of outcry that there should be. Nowhere else in the democratic world is live facial recognition used in this way. You won't see live facial recognition cameras like that used in Europe or America or anywhere else. We are a complete outlier. And paired with things like digital ID and kind of crackdowns and protests that we've seen, the worry is that we all become kind of walking ID cards with facial recognition cameras, that we're all kind of walking barcodes that can be tracked and monitored and then, in different ways managed and controlled by our own government.
What's the latest with facial recognition from the police? I know that there was some sort of pilot schemes. One was in Croydon, I believe. And what's the plan next? Is there a plan to roll it out across the country? And do we know how much is being spent on this? What's the return on every pound that's spent by the police on what do we get for our money?
Yeah, I mean, those are all really good questions, which the police typically refuse to answer. And it's really hard to put, I mean, not that they're not very forthcoming about the money spent on facial recognition anyway. We do freedom of information requests all the time, so we struggle to get that kind of information. You can, get information on what various police forces spend on the tech and so on, but there's a lot more that goes into it because bear in mind they're building databases. That takes a lot of time and a lot of police resource that's very hard to quantify, or at least they say it's very hard to quantify to us when we do freedom of information requests. And then it's the deployments of police resourcing when they're using these cameras. They want police officers on corners ready to stop and talk to people and all the rest of it. So it is a quite significant expenditure. What they get in return, it's hard to quantify, it's hard to say. Certainly they can trot out arrest statistics, but as anyone kind of who's keeping an eye on policing in the UK knows, arrests don't mean prosecutions. So somebody might be stopped and spoken to and then let to go on their way, or they could be, taken into custody but then let go. People are bouncing around the criminal justice system.
Sorry, when you say arrest statistics, so is that how they're trying to show that it's been a successful program by showing their arrest statistics?
Yeah, now they're doing that because they're arresting more people using facial recognition. But they also...
Presumably you said they also...
Well, there were lots of the misidentifications as well. So where people are wrongly stopped. And in fact, this is happening less because the algorithms are getting more accurate. That is 100% the case. And I can see
the algorithms are getting
more accurate now. So we used to see tons of misidentifications. I think the first time it was used at Notting Hill Carnival, 99% of the flags were misidentifications.
What year was that?
That was 2016, I think, or 2015. And I monitored the police using facial recognition at Carnival like 2 years in a row, and it was really, really bad. So it would flag like a woman as a wanted man and things like that, like people that looked completely and totally different. And the police have persisted and really trained algorithms on the general public over time to the point where it is quite accurate now, but there are still misidentifications. In fact, I'm going to be in court in January because I'm bringing a legal challenge against the Metropolitan Police alongside a man called Sean Thompson, who I witnessed being misidentified by the police as a result of a live facial recognition check. And he was treated really badly. He was held for about half an hour. asked to produce his ID. We're not a papers carrying country, or at least we weren't, so he didn't have any ID on him, but he was very compliant and very calm, and he got his wife to send him a picture of his passport. That wasn't good enough for the police. He got her to send another one. So at this point, he's shown them like 2 or 3 photos of his passport. They're questioning him. Oh, is that really you? Is it really your passport? They were desperate to try and find some reason to have stopped him. And I see this happen with police stops all the time, even stop and search as well. And if it's clearly not someone that they need to speak to, that they'll try to find some reason to justify the stop. He then was treated really like an animal, like an exhibit. They were trying to put lights on him and say, let's have a look at your scars, any tattoos, to try and identify him. And
this wasn't at Carnival, was it?
No, this was near London Bridge.
Okay.
And then eventually he was let to go on his way. But that's the kind of very dystopian scenario we're going to see much more of, because if you have, even with a camera that's 99% accurate, if you're scanning millions of members of the public, that error rate, although it's a small percentage, is still a lot of people.
But sorry, you said that it was 99% inaccurate
when it was first used. That's right.
Used.
Yeah.
And they're not prepared to tell us how much they're spending on it, but they are showing us the data on how many arrests are being made. It doesn't seem like that's enough information to judge this is a good program. So I don't quite understand how it's being pushed through and who's exactly pioneering this if it's not clear to the public that it's a successful program.
Well, I think also what the public needs to consider, even if there are more arrests being made using live facial recognition, is that the best way to do policing? Do we basically want to live in a kind of open prison and have cameras used to do the work that police officers used to do, to a point where we kind of know that criminals are swilling around and we just hope that they walk past one of these cameras? A question that I've asked the police is, what else have you done? If there are people that you are trying to seek to arrest, are you only putting them on the watch list if you've already been to their address, if you've already tried to find them and identify them? No, they're not. That's not the case. So you don't have to, if somebody reports a crime and you have a suspect, they don't have to have tried to find that suspect at all before they put them onto a facial recognition watch list and kind of just hope that they walk into the arms of police officers. And then there's the cost to the general public. There's the cost to the rest of us. Do we want to live in a kind of total policing environment like that, where we're constantly being scanned and watched by the police, and that we're all treated like we're in effectively like a custody lineup?
Yes.
I don't think so.
Thanks for watching this clip from The Winston Marshall Show. You can click here to watch the full episode, and for more clips like this one, don't forget to subscribe. And as always, be well.